America's dirty little secret. We've tended to sweep it under the carpet for years and years and years. It brings in perpetual income over drugs, over all the sports, professional sports combined, and that's why it's so big. Besides the sickness and of it all. But my main concern, I think, as a parent and as somebody who has gone through this and seen my child go through this, because she still suffers years and years later from this in life. And is that not only do we need to bring awareness and teach and educate, not just our children, but everybody, but also to bring help, to bring those facilities and to bring the help that's needed. As I stated, in our position that we were in, the lifestyle that we lived, there was still not sufficient help to get to bring my daughter the proper healing that she needed.
And I think that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to bring that awareness today with International Defensive Training Systems. And you are with the foundation as well, correct?
Yeah, I deal with the foundation to bring awareness against and to teach and educate.
Okay. And then you provide housing for people that are experiencing this?
Yes, there's a safe home for abused children.
So, caller, again, thank you for your story, and I know how painful this must be for you even now and for your daughter. You're talking about the home that you have, that you're involved with this organization. Who brings those people to you? Is it the police department? Is there some organization? How do you reach these people?
Yeah, they deal with law enforcement.
Okay.
And that's really all I should probably speak on them without them being on.
Yeah, no, I know it's a really sensitive subject, and we're so thankful that Christian Living Radio has us here today to even talk about this. So, but it has to be talked about. Just like, you mentioned you're a parent that's experienced this, it has to be talked about to gain further insight and information to help other parents so it doesn't happen to them.
Right.
So back to International Defensive Training Systems, what would you say after listening to this caller? She's already gone through it. What would you say to her as far as what can she continue to do to help her daughter?
Well, there are organizations out there that do help. The Phoenix Dream Center, the Hope Wing, there's help there. There's a lot of different organizations here in Arizona. There's also, we're connected with other organizations outside, different states that are ministries, and IDTS is also ministry. We also deal with the after effects, and that's why right now we're at ASU doing classes, and we have trafficking victims there. And so we're not just doing the prevention side. These girls come through our classes, and they're working through their triggers. They're working through everything that they've gone through, that they're going through. And it's a healing. It is definitely a healing for them. Carrie is really good with working with them, that aftercare, because they're on the mats and all of a sudden something will trigger them, and we deal with that right then, right there. And so I don't know where her daughter is, but she's more than welcome to reach out to us, and we would love to work with her. Like I said,
realizing that they've been chosen,
Yes.
They were chosen, they were manipulated, they were stalked, they became a victim. And then there's different stages, and then you go to the survivor stage, and then, my prayer is that you go to the warrior stage, and that realizing that you will always be triggered. You'll be 100 years old, and there still will be triggers because of the pain that you've went through. It can be anything, though, that will trigger you, and that it's different for every single person, but that they can get through it, and that they are worthy, and that they are, worthy to fight for, worthy to be protected, and that God loves them, and God can fill any of those voids, any of those holes that someone else was trying to fill. And
well, I want to add something. Marilyn, you were talking about how the girls on the mats are triggered, and What about, because earlier we talked about it's not just girls that are abducted for sex trafficking. What about the boys? Does IDTS, do you have anything for boys?
Yes, we do. We actually, and that's part of the problem is the boys are being, they're just out there. And I think there's only one home in the United States that just opened a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And we are actually also in the process of, so IDTS does prevention, education, critical self-defense. We do rescue. And then we're looking to open 17 safe houses and 15 ranches throughout the United States, Canada,
Wow.
and one in Yangon. And so those are some of our undertakings. 28% of the trafficking out there are boys, and I kind of want to go back to what your guest was saying about the lifestyle that they lived. And unfortunately, and that's what happens, people think it's just happening in the poor neighborhoods. Yes, poverty really plays into it, but these guys don't care. Like I said, violence knows no boundaries, and they go everywhere. There was a couple of girls at the Arrowhead Mall, straight A students, good kids, never trouble, nothing. Went to the movies, went up to the food court, waiting for dad. This guy comes in, and here's the thing: is these guys lower the girls' guards, if there is a guard. Mm-hmm. Most girls, most of these kids don't have a guard. It's not just girls; that's guys too, boys too. But he approached them, good looking, clean cut, charming. Hands them a card. He's like, "Hey,
money, right?
Hey girls, I'm a representative from Disney. You guys are really cute. Would you be interested in doing,
So they start with flattery.
It's a numbers game. It's
a
numbers game.
And so they, lowered their guards. They actually left with him. He convinced them, I have a studio right down the street. We can just do a couple headshots real quick. And, I'll bring you right back. And they're like, well, we'll wait for my dad. They went with him. He's like, hey, I forgot something at my house. Pulls into his garage door goes down. Two guys come out, drag them in. And there's like 4 other girls that are bound and drugged in this place. It took us 2 years to get the one girl back. We never found the other one.
It took 2 years, caller. How long did it take to get your daughter back?
Oh, she was only gone for a short period, which we were very lucky because they actually took her out of the city and we're going to take her out of the state.
Yeah.
And
she was only gone for a short period, but we were very fortunate and blessed to get her back.
Well, and that's real common. They don't normally, when they take a child, they don't normally stay in the area. They travel what we call the corridors. So they travel the I-10, I-5, the 15, the 95. So they have these corridors that they, go, up and down and travel and move because they don't want these children to be recognized. We also work on Backpage.com. We work in tandem with law enforcement and for rescuing and just different things. Department of Homeland Security, FBI, just different entities that we work with when we get, somebody reaches out to us and says, my child's missing, what can we do? And so they move these kids around so they're not found. I just kind of will tell you real quick, there's something called Thorn, and that was Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore created this organization years ago. And they're still active today. And they spent like $6 million to do this facial recognition software to help aid in getting these girls, recognize these kids, because they're being sold on Backpage.com and different sites, Lolita. There's just a lot of different sites that you can go to. And so they were trying to do this facial recognition. Now, what these guys have done, now they've gotten smart. Now, when you can go on there, there's certain keywords that we look for when we're looking for a minor child. And they have now, because of the facial recognition software, now they either take just body shots of the girls or they do a far distance and blur that face out. So they're very skilled in what they do. And it's very dangerous, and it doesn't matter whether they're in a poverty level or they're in the upper echelon, in the financial
They'll just take
chain.
wherever they can.
Absolutely, and they're hunting. That's the whole point. They are hunting, they are looking, and they are very successful. So we have domestic minor sex trafficking in the United States. We have international trafficking where they're selling our children outside the United States, and we have cyber trafficking. Then we have people that are holding our kids, for their own sexual gratification, or we have just flat out have. There's something called mesopedia. Mesopedia is actually the hatred of children to the extent that they have to do something about it, and those are our child serial killers. I know this is a hard topic to cover, but it has to get out there. And
Well, absolutely, and that's why we have you on the show, because nobody's talking about this on the radio. And someone like me, I didn't know anything about this, even though I'm in the, anti-pornography field. This is an area I don't know much about, and that's why I wanted to bring you on the show, because if there's people like me that don't know, there's other people, and we want to educate, because those people have children, and that's our heart is to protect them.
You're listening to ChristianLivingRadio.com. If you'd like to get your show, your ministry on the air, please contact us at 520-812-6363 or write to us at info@ChristianLivingRadio.com. And now back to the show.
So, Carrie, we've been talking a lot about, on the front end, about predators and, being protective and what things that your foundation watches for and things like that. What about on the back end? Say there's a girl or boy who's been abducted. Is there any way that they can reach out for help secretly or silently without their abductor knowing? What help is available for them?
There are lots of organizations.
But how would you, as if you were abducted or kidnapped, let's say, how would I be able to, get help without my abductor knowing?
Unfortunately,
they're locked up, though.
well, I'm saying unfortunately, that's almost a no go.
Okay,
because
so it really doesn't happen.
It really doesn't happen.
Okay.
I mean, unless they escape.
They have to fight.
Yeah,
So it's the parents and the law enforcement that are the ones that are continually fighting and looking for their children.
Absolutely.
And that's what actually gets those children rescued. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, and having having the parents trained, having the children trained, to not go to that second location. Like that's where the prevention part of it really comes into play, because you have all these stats against you of 80%, 90%, all this stuff against you, but you actually have really good stats for you when it comes to fighting back. If you use your voice, if you immediately, you take that surprise fight back, the action that's coming back at them, but they need to be prepared. Those kids need to be prepared on those moves to get out so that they do not get to that second location.
And most of them probably aren't. Taking
They're
it right.
frozen. They're frozen, and they've it's an adult or it's someone maybe that they cared about or something like that. That they need to realize that they have a voice, to use that voice. I mean, we've all heard our kids screaming and stuff like that for joy, hopefully, but that they use that voice and that they call out fire. Fire, 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 that they are doing that over and over and over and over. They are kicking, they are biting, they are scratching, they are poking, they are, groin shots, anything that they can do, but they need to be trained. You know what I mean? And the parents need to, it's that whole optimist bias that they, that it's not going to happen to my kid. It's not going to happen in my neighborhood, that it's not my family that might be the abuser, or it's not that, that friend or whatever, but that those kids know that their body parts are there, that their body parts are there.
To them and them only.
Yes. Those private parts, and that there are no secrets that can be, if some adult tells them, that this is our little secret or anything like that, that there is no secret that is allowed to be, kept from their parents or their loved ones. And, there's a lot to be said about the whole thing, but again, it's preparing them so that they're not afraid to fight back, because your stats of actually, if you fight back and you use your voice and you use all your tools in your toolbox, that you have a very almost 100% chance of getting out of that situation.
Isn't that amazing? But obviously, just listening to the statistics, most kids don't have those in their toolbox, right? So they end up getting abducted. So I know your goal, my goal, right, is to get the word out. And so, what more can we tell the parents? So we're going to have on Unashamed by Grace on our Facebook page, we're going to have your IDTS information. We're also going to have from damselindefense.com some information there, and there's a book called Safe Hearts, which talks about what you were just mentioning, Carrie, preparing your children from a young age and giving them information. What else can we do to help your organization?
Well, main thing too is to get the parents trained on the curriculum that IDTS has created, because it's getting inside the mind of what that predator is thinking. We don't, it's being wise, because God said, his people die from lack of knowledge, from lack of wisdom, and that knowing, you know what I mean, learning what their tactics are, and so then they can train their children. So,
So are your classes primarily for adults, and then the adults train the children? No. Okay.
We are start at the age of 5.